This is where I get in trouble here. It's recording live, but hang on a second. I think what happened.
We're on.
Yeah, you're on YouTube. Okay. I wanted to record. It was recording and then it stopped. It says live. If we're live on YouTube, then we'll be recording on YouTube. There was supposed to be another spot in the upper left-hand corner that I could hit the record button, and it was up there, and then I stopped it. I'll just hit that. Okay, you're good to go.
All right. Thank you, Penny.
You're welcome.
So we'll get underway. It is 7:06. This is the Ordinance Review Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, the 29th of September, 2021. And all members of the Ordinance Review Committee are present. Preamble to the agenda here. Until further notice, the Corporation of Harpers Ferry's governing and deliberative bodies will hold meetings and/or hearings virtually via Zoom webinar, which provides for public participation during a public comment period when applicable and when posted on the agenda. Alternatively, the public may watch meetings by YouTube video live stream or listen by telephone. These options comply with the Open Governmental Meetings Act. And visit the virtual meetings information page on the town website for further information on how to view and participate in the town's virtual meetings and or hearings. All right, approval of the agenda. There are no objections, the agenda is approved. So we'll move to item number 1. The Ordinance Review Committee will discuss and may take action on the following items. Number 1, ordinance amendments for the regulation of fences. And at our council meeting on the 13th, the mayor distributed a draft ordinance that he had composed that was taken from several other municipalities and put together, and that was sent to the Planning Commission as well. The Planning Commission is also looking at a fence ordinance. So I will turn it over to either of you if you have anything to add there.
We also had the older proposal that had been reviewed, I guess, in 2019. And as I studied them, I think the mayor did a great job pulling in some wonderful ordinances, but it seems to be out of sync with some of what we already have in Appendix A, and I am inclined to start with the older proposal and see if there is any of the mayor's draft that we want to or need to incorporate into what had already been reviewed. So that's where I started.
I'm fine with the mayor's proposal as it is.
I'm sorry.
I'm fine with the mayor's proposal as it's written.
I feel like there are some conflicts with our present ordinances.
Give me some examples.
Well, that we already have a fence ordinance in Appendix A that had been approved some time ago by landmarks, and there's enough detail, additional detail in this that if some of those areas have not been raised as concerns, I'm not sure I want to complicate our ordinances with additional. That was my feeling from studying both of them.
The 2019 proposed ordinance, I think included some amendments to, oh, yes, it was Appendix A, that's right. That's right. And also Appendix B. The amendments in Appendix B dealt with temporary construction fences. But the ones in Appendix A dealt with fences, just fences.
Yeah, it added one thing to Appendix A about the finished side out.
Right. And I think that's pretty important piece there. That part of Appendix A. I looked at ordinances from other municipalities myself, and a lot of them do mention finished side fences being outward from the property where the fence was originating. So I think that's something that we should include in any ordinance that we would put forth. And even Ransom, I have Ransom's ordinance here, and I think Ransom's ordinance mentions that.
I did have some notes on the 2019 proposal, questions and things that one is the numbering didn't make sense to me, and I'm wondering if online and in the ordinance book that I inherited from BZA, whether there had already been some changes, but 1304.02, the proposal starts with G.
Right. Actually, what happened was when this was drafted in Microsoft Word, it carried the numbering from the previous section there.
Ah, okay.
So that's the problem. If you look in the section above that, it goes from F to G.
Okay.
It shouldn't have.
So that's just a typo glitch then. Okay, got it. I don't know if you guys are interested in what I noted through this proposal,
Yes.
questions and concerns. On what is presently numbered as G3, it mentions the minimum distance from the property line that it can go, or it says it can go right up to the property line. But I'm wondering, is there a need for a maximum distance? Would there be any problem with someone putting a fence in the middle of their lot somewhere? Would that be a concern? So that was one question. This idea of the fence that is right on the property line becoming mutual property. I think the ordinance addresses this carefully, but I'm wondering, knowing, I guess Nancy Case created a lot of this. I'm assuming she did some research on that and checked with legal counsel that we had that issue covered.
Yeah, it came out of the planning commission.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if they had legal counsel check into that or not.
That was the one thing that this idea of mutual ownership, to make sure, I can see the reason for it. But it does seem like something that we want to kind of double check with the lawyer, that all of our bases are covered there. And I think the changes on Appendix A made sense. Can you tell me, Kevin, for my own education, the importance of changing from shall to may or must?
Shall, depending on the court that's reviewing it at the time, shall can be considered ambiguous or unclear, whereas must is always considered mandatory.
Okay.
May is considered discretionary.
Okay.
May not is always negatively mandatory.
Got it. So those set out whether it has to be or whether it's an option.
Right. Legal drafting manuals, most legal drafting manuals advise against using the word shall now,
Okay.
for that reason.
That helps. And then I guess the other thing I had on the Appendix B change, temporary construction fences are allowed pursuant to the following standards. The temporary construction fence is to be installed on the front, side, and rear property lines, or as otherwise specified by the ordinance compliance officer. That to me sounds pretty mandatory. Is it always necessary to have that temporary construction fence up?
I think that came directly from the planning commission.
Mm.
Yeah, they make it mandatory.
I'm having, I mean, to me, the most construction projects underway in this town, I would have a hard time thinking that a temporary fence would be necessary.
There's only one, isn't there, Hilltop? And it has a temporary fence.
And I mean, I can see why in some projects it might be advisable. And then this would be, but it sounds very mandatory to me, at least as it's given in A. And I'm wondering if we should say a temporary construction fence may be installed. And we still have it covered if the OCO thinks it's needed to specify that.
I'm trying to think what was the reasoning behind that. I'm sure we discussed that when this ordinance came before us last time.
Sounds like it would be Hilltop to me. Can't think of any other reason.
That's what it was geared toward.
But this is covering all construction. I mean, we're replacing the floor on our porch right now. It's a pretty major thing. But I certainly don't think a temporary fence is needed around it.
Well, it says temporary construction fences are allowed.
Are allowed, yeah.
So that means they're not mandatory. But in the situations where they are allowed, where they are put up, then they must meet these specifications.
Yeah. I agree that the head sentence makes it sound optional, but then A sounds pretty mandatory to me.
A is mandatory in the situations where temporary construction fence is being erected.
Okay,
That was the idea of it.
okay. So you think it's okay as it is?
I do.
A, yes. B, I just noticed that B says permitted fence types and then doesn't elaborate. And the planning commission's draft had two subsections under B. It didn't make it over. The first one says all fence types meeting standards published in Appendix A of this part. Or 2, chain link fences with screening fabric provided that they are neatly designed and maintained as approved by the ordinance compliance officer. Screening fabric shall be attached with galvanized metal heavy gauge wire clips and have opacity greater than 80%. That should have been under B.
Okay.
I actually remember discussing that. Realized it didn't make
Well, those were my concerns on, and questions on these, and I think other than checking with our council on that mutual ownership to make sure that we have all the bases covered there, I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Describe the mutual ownership concern again.
Well, let's see. Let me find it here. Been shuffling pages. Okay. This is what is presently number G4. Fences may be constructed on property lines described in the property of record, provided that A, lot lines are established from the legal description of the property, i.e. the most recent deed to the property or attachment to. B, a written agreement has been executed and legally recorded between the property owners of the record. And C, unless the property owners of record agree otherwise, fences on a boundary line are owned by both owners when both are using the fence. Neither may remove it without the other's permission, and both are responsible for its maintenance. When a property is sold, the new owner purchases the mutual ownership of the fence.
That sounds rather standard. Otherwise, you'd have two fences at each property line,
Yeah,
and that would make no sense.
yeah. I just think the idea of the joint ownership is complicated, but probably necessary.
I think
when it's
so.
right on that
I
line.
think so.
What I want to make sure is that the lawyer thinks we have all the bases covered. You know,
What I found in one of the other municipalities that I was looking at, I'm trying to find it right now. I don't remember which one it was. One of the other municipalities I looked at, instead of allowing the fence to go right on the property line, they set a minimum setback of, I want to say it was like 2 inches from the property line. And the property line had to be surveyed and marked before the fence could go up. So that the person installing the fence was still installing it on their property, even though it was pretty much on the property line. So I don't know if that's something that we would want to consider instead, that might avoid the legal questions that arise with the 2019 draft ordinance that was put before council. Because it does raise a lot of questions there.
I can see, you know, in my worst imagination, seeing two property owners have two fences that are, you know, 4 inches apart in that case.
Yeah, I can name one of those here in town.
But I'm not sure that would be any uglier than a legal fight over, you know, what the fence is going to look like and who's going to paint it this year, and you know, I'm just not sure.
Here's one from, this was in Ohio, Swanton, Ohio. Fences may be constructed on or not more than 1 foot from the property line. On or not more than 1 foot. But that still allows it on the property line. This one, is another one in Ohio, Olmsted Falls, Ohio. Fencing shall be located entirely on the property for which the permit has been issued.
I'm sorry, say that again.
It says entirely on the property for which the permit has been issued, but then they're exempted from setback requirements. So I would take that to mean basically on the property line, but not over the other property, onto the other property. So really not on the property line, but right at the property line.
I think
And this one says the property must be surveyed and marked.
yeah, which we do have.
Ranson allows them on the property line.
And do they handle that, saying that it's joint ownership and?
It says fences and walls are permitted to be located on the property line. When a fence is erected on the property line, all of the fence and any of its supporting structures should be contained within the private lot.
What does that mean? I don't understand that.
I guess so if it's like if they're erecting it in the front of their yard by the street, the fence has to be on their private property. But at the can be at the property line, but must be in the private property.
You're referring to intrusion into the municipal areas.
Right. And they're prohibited on or across easements. That's really all. As far as property line goes.
You want to wait and get a legal opinion on that joint ownership?
That would be my preference to, I kind of like this idea that we're avoiding that possibility of having two fences 4 inches apart. But we're also a line that is common to two property owners. They have to come up with some legal agreement.
It sounds reasonable that it would be joint ownership. Because otherwise it would be, every municipality in the country would be stymied with double fences every property line. I'm okay with seeking a legal opinion on it, but I think the legal opinion would be it's commonplace.
Well, knowing the planning commission is also looking at fence ordinance right now. I don't know if we should go ahead and seek a legal opinion, or should we just send our concerns to the planning commission and let them debate it more, and then if they feel that there's a need for a legal opinion, then go for it. I imagine they'll probably have the same concerns that we do.
Yeah.
I move that we do exactly that. Send the planning commission for their comment. That was a motion, by the way.
To send it to the planning commission?
Yeah.
With the understanding that, or informing them that we would seek.
We have a concern about that particular item and asking for their input.
Want to assure legal That it's appropriate and passes legal muster.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, if that is a motion, I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion on that then? Okay.
I guess my only concern is I know that there is that pressing issue about the setback for the BZA and but I guess this is a setback question, so yeah, we can't really pass the rest of the thing without this key. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this a pretty important matter to settle before we could really even move forward with an ordinance at this point, since we now, these concerns have been raised.
So let's express the urgency to the planning commission that we think we have a pretty workable amendment with this 2019 amendment, and that we hope that could be expedited. I do think that the mayor's draft, it is good and everything, but I think it's going to need way more overhaul of the rest of our ordinances in ways that unless there have been disputes or study of the historic guidelines that I don't know about, I don't think they're necessary. Changes would be necessary.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion on? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Making progress. Number 2, ordinance amendments for compliance with West Virginia Code 815AK concerning rental of properties. And I believe at our last meeting, you were going to
Send a draft, and I did email a draft. Did you get that?
yes.
Okay. Did you get that, Jim? Okay. So basically, my thoughts on ordinance review, ordinance changes would be to change as little as is necessary. So given the goal to take out all of these restrictions that we had on part-time or short-term rentals, I just changed 1311 02 A2, where it gives bed and breakfast inn as a permitted use, and then lists all of the requirements. I take out the requirements, but I also add the other. I make bed and breakfast into more general. So it says short-term rentals, including bed and breakfast inns, vacation rentals, or hostels, providing they A, obtain valid business licenses, B, pay all applicable taxes, including hotel, motel, and sales taxes, and C, abide by town ordinances applicable to all properties within the residential zone, including parking, noise, and lighting restrictions. I spelled those three out because I thought those would be the most likely to be concerns of neighbors if there were crowds gathering around a rental. But there may be others that we want to add to that. And then on conditional uses, 131102B, we strike out 3 and 4 because the vacation rentals and the hostels can no longer be considered conditional use. It will be permitted.
And were there anywhere else in the ordinances that dealt with short-term rentals? Do you remember?
Not that I know of.
I know I looked for that before.
There might be something in tax codes or something, but I got this business and taxation code sheet with something highlighted, but when I read it, I couldn't relate it to specifically short-term rentals.
No.
So,
And if we send this to the council, I would want to change hotel motel to, I think it's room occupancy tax.
okay.
And sales tax has a different name as well. That's the only changes I would want to make to this. I think the rest of it is real good.
Okay. So you say room occupancy tax?
Yeah, it's room occupancy tax, and I think sales tax has a different name as well. Sales and use tax. Oh, and also add business and occupation tax, because those would all apply.
Well, I'm trying to remember. I thought that with this, when the sales tax was added in Harper's Ferry, that we no longer paid the B&O tax.
You do, it's a reduced rate. Certain kinds of businesses, I think, are exempt from it now, if I remember right.
I was thinking,
But it still applies to most businesses at a lower rate than it was before.
I don't think it does too, but that is the reason why I did say all applicable taxes. I know the county is raising the property taxes, so that's another one that is not spelled out. But
right. 735.12 in business and occupation tax deals with rentals and royalties.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that applies as well. Furnishing, yeah, any real or tangible personal property which has a tax status in the municipality, yeah.
So with those edits, are you guys ready to send that to council for first reading?
I am.
Yes.
Okay. I so move.
I second.
Okay, any further discussion on that?
Will you be able to draft it up in final form? Okay,
Sure will.
great, thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Next item is ordinance amendments related to violation of public nuisance, safety, and health codes of property. The mayor had mentioned this at the town council meeting as well, that it was one of the projects that he wanted to work on. But he has not sent any suggested language to us. So I'm not sure that this is something that we can really work on right now.
Yeah, reading it over, it sounds like there's plenty of ammunition in the present ordinance. So I don't know exactly what the concern is.
The municipal judge felt that the enforcement language needed to be strengthened.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what other concerns there were. I think that the mayor had other points that he wanted to add to the ordinance as well.
Okay.
And I don't really know what they are.
Okay.
Specifically, I mean, I have a general idea, but I don't know specifically what they are.
And Kevin, I know it's 1109 nuisance and property maintenance, but somewhere from someone I got another ordinance that was related to it, and I tried to find that this week and I couldn't. Was there another ordinance that was concerned with it besides 1109?
I don't think so. I don't see anything else here that I think would necessarily be part of that.
Nothing about vacant properties or anything.
No, we don't have a vacant or derelict property ordinance at this time.
Okay.
I move that we ask Mayor Vaughn to forward his concerns to us for consideration.
I'd second that.
Okay, any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and the last item we have tonight comes directly from the Water Commission. That was amendment to Article 905 to increase water leak adjustment rate. And that recommendation ultimately came from, it was either USDA or the water project engineer or the PSC. It was one of those three. But I think it was probably the PSC, now that I think about it. But I can't say that for sure. Currently in the ordinance, the water Leak adjustment rate is 60 cents. I guess that's per gallon. And the recommendation was to increase it to 84 cents. Yeah, 905.04 schedule of rates. Incremental leak adjustment, 60 cents per 1,000 gallons of water is to be used when the bill reflects unusual consumption, which can be attributed to eligible water leakage on customer side of the meter. And the recommendation is to increase that to 84 cents a gallon.
So that is strictly a number that we're changing.
Right.
Limits, okay.
It's a simple change in the rules. But it's one that has to be made before the water department can increase that rate.
I move that we make that change in the water leak rate.
A second.
To 84 cents.
To 84 cents. Per 1,000 gallons
For
or
1,000 gallons. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. And that concludes everything we had on the agenda tonight. There are some other concerns that we'll have to look at coming up. I think one of those has to do with PZA. And I'll draft that up and send to you, and we'll schedule another meeting.
and maybe next time we need to catch up on minutes as well, to get those recorded and.
We should.
Nobody took minutes tonight unless you did.
I took notes.
Okay.
But you-
I've got minutes from the last meeting at home.
The last
I'll type them
one.
and send them to you.
Okay. That's fine.
Thank you all for doing that.
I move we adjourn.
Okay.
The second,
All right, it is 7:51 PM.
Less than an hour. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
thank you all. I've got to sign some checks, which I think.